So let's talk real quick about Palworld.
Yeah.
Palworld is a video game that is just recently released. It was not directly by the developers, but just by the fans. There was this advertisement of like, this is Pokemon with guns.
Shut up and take my money.
That's kind of what a lot of people were saying. That's what, when I was told about it, it was described to me as Pokemon with guns. And so my first thing I thought was, Nintendo ain't gonna let this fly, because Nintendo is notorious for taking anyone down that gets within their copyrights or infringes upon their IP or anything.
Shut it down.
So Palworld came out last week. It has taken the gaming world by storm. It has blown up. It's available on Game Pass and it's available on Steam. It sold 6 million copies in like the first 3 days. It's the most played game right now by a mile. I think it's hitting numbers that I think it's hitting numbers that no paid game has ever hit in concurrent players right now.
Will it survive?
And then there was a Pokemon mod that came out that Nintendo did take down. And there's been a lot of rumors as to how is Nintendo going to approach this, because this game has blown up. Now, your points were 100% valid, and I think that's the point. Competition is good. At the end of the day, this will make Pokemon become better. This will make games.
And that's my non-legal point. That's just a general point, right? That's a not legal point at all. Is that, hey, competition is good. We want competition, like America. Let's do this, or rather Japan. But well, we kind of force some America on Japan, so you know what I'm gonna say.
This should be a wake up for Game Freak. That's like, whoa, these people actually tried. I don't know if we can like get away with putting out the same shit we have been. We actually need to like accelerate this.
And there is a difference between there's a difference between Nintendo DMCA striking YouTubers, because look, you guys know, we all know, every YouTuber knows DMCA strikes are BS, right?
Yes.
The complete BS. People are able to submit bad faith DMCA strikes on YouTube for no reason whatsoever. So Nintendo is no stranger to that, and they do that all the time. In fact, in the article where they were reporting on that mod, because there was the Pokemon mod, the 1-for-1 straight up violating, copyright infringing 100% 1-for-1 Pokemon mod, they sent that guy a DMCA, and in that article there was a video of the footage which was separate, which was already DMCA'd off of YouTube. So they got that video within 16 hours, because the article came out like 17 hours ago. So they got that article right away. Nintendo's on top of that. But DMCAing is different than a lawsuit. A lawsuit is much more intensive and has a lot more at stake than just sending out a DMCA.
Now, what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think Nintendo, and I haven't had a chance to watch your video yet, but do you think Nintendo has a legitimate shot at them if they go after them?
So here was my analysis, because everybody was posting videos that were saying, and I saw a lot of YouTubers doing this, that Nintendo, the Pokemon company, because by the way, the Pokemon company, which controls all branding for Pokemon, it's Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures. But in many countries, Nintendo is the only entity that owns the trademark, because Game Freak and Creatures and maybe the Pokemon company don't have corporate setup in other countries. But that aside, Nintendo could sue. That doesn't mean they should sue, and that doesn't mean they will. But the thing that people are forgetting here is, especially even other attorneys and people that were analyzing this is Japanese copyright law. Now, I'm not a Japanese lawyer, but I've actually talked to some Japanese IP lawyers and folks that have followed what goes on in Japan with Japanese IP. It's much more permissive and allows for much broader suits. There's things called moral rights in Japanese copyright. So if somebody violates your moral rights, you can sue somebody in Japan.
What kind of crazy? I mean, what a novel and unique strategy.
But also, it's very likely that since these are Japanese companies, since they know that copyright law is broader, there was some sort of handshake deal. Something went down. People went and talked. Your people talked to my people. Both the Pokemon company and Pocket Pair are both located in Tokyo. They're like 4 metro stops from each other. I guarantee you there was some conversation at some point about this. And there was some decision that was made not to sue, even though they could. I think that there are close enough designs. And, beyond that, I think they could say, look, the fact that this doesn't pass the squint test, right? When you look at some of those pals and you look, just squint and you look at them next to the Pokemon, it's really hard to tell. Most cases settle. Most cases don't actually go to trial. So all of this, well, it's not exactly the same. There's these details. Those are trial things. Most companies, and look, the companies I would represent, most companies, fellow corporate lawyers I talk to, they would settle the lawsuit. So my argument is that they could bring them to court and they would probably settle, right? Which is technically a win. A settlement's a win. But I don't think they're going to do it at this point. I don't think they should do it. And I think if Nintendo does do it, I think they'll lose a lot of face. It'll be huge egg on their face.
Pika, next time, make sure you don't shock us too, Pikachu.
So I don't think at this point they're going to do it because it would look bad. In fact, I'll actually argue this. Now that they've struck the Pokemon mod, they can make a shit ton of money by just having their own officially branded Pokemon mod that people have to pay for. They can just go ahead and
yeah, but they won't do that.
But they could. They
so
could though.
Weird. Nintendo's so weird.
Though.
Nintendo is like this company that just sits on gold mine of money, and they just won't do it. They're so weird. It's mind blowing. Again, as a fan of Nintendo, they just miss so many opportunities. It's mind blowing to me. It really is.
I would like to ask a clarifying question. You talked about difference between Japanese copyright law, blah, blah, blah. I've never really heard of the squint test before. Is that specifically a Japanese IP law?
Specific to Asia. It's specific to Asia. It's actually was brought up by the Slants. I'm joking. Although that's a famous case, actually. There was an Asian band called the Slants, and they were denied a trademark and because it was offensive. And they appealed it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And we're like, why is this offensive? And the Supreme Court agreed with them and said, nope, we're going to allow them to have this name.
Unbelievable!
All right, so we have a really respectable audience here. Really respectable.
High class.
So, high quality. So we got one legal question for you before you go, because I know you're going to pop on for just a minute. But Dude 357 says, can we sue Jeremy for being gay?
Yes, mega injunction. Throw them back in Mexico, no razor wire needed. Send it back over the border, 100%.
Victory!
This Palworld thing has just become very interesting because, like I said, it's the biggest game.
But Jeremy, I heard you say this, and I think Ryan, you said the same thing. When you guys first saw that game, I mean, Pokemon was the first thing you thought of. Like, being honest, like you the first time you saw it, you're like, oh yeah, it's a Pokemon.
It's tough because it was described to me as, watch this. This is Pokemon with guns. And I watched it, and I, as someone who has played Pokemon and likes Pokemon, I was like, well, there's obviously similarities, but it doesn't look like they just doesn't look like those are actually Pokemon in this game. Because that's how it was described to me, as they just took actual Pokemon and gave them guns and shit. I'm like, I don't think you could do that. Then when I looked at it, it's like, okay, clearly I see that it could be derived from that, but it's different. There are differences, and differences enough. You're right. That's what you're going to argue.
It's Arc or Rust. I mean, it's just Arc or Rust with pals, right?
I shared this the other day, and I'm like, that if you're just looking at that picture, that looks like Pokemon. That looks like Pokemon. It just does. You know what I mean? If you don't, and again, I'm not a big Pokemon player myself. I personally hope nothing happens to Palworld. I hope nothing happens to them. I hope they continue to do this, because at the end of the day, the market determines the market. Okay. The reason that Mario Kart has continued to stand the test of time and so many imitators and duplicators, so Mario Kart's a fantastic game, and it does. I like a lot of the other kart racers too, but their kart racer genre has been just completely they've been copied, but nothing can derail it. Same with Smash Bros. They had PlayStation Battle Royale All-Stars, which was a complete ripoff of Smash, and nobody cared. They copied the same formula. And I'm not saying from a legal standpoint. I'm just saying it's clear that they were heavily inspired by it, but it didn't hurt them.
Well, inspired by is fine. Inspired by is fine. But let's say there was a document that came out, which once again, we do not have this. I have not seen this. This doesn't exist. But let's say they're copy this Pokemon, right? And there's an email that's hey, here's a picture of the Pokemon, copy the Pokemon. That would be clear infringement, right? And there's some of them that it looked like, hey, this could have been copied. That's something that might have had to go to trial. But, at this point, I think it's already out. It's successful. I think it just doesn't look good. Now, here's my question, and this one actually split the chat. So I'll ask you two guys, because it was equal in my chat, completely equal. Do you think Palworld will genuinely last like, a year from now or so on? Or do you think it's going to be a fad? Where
I think it's
it
going to be a
fades
fad.
after a couple months?
I think it'll be a fad. I think it'll be a fad because what we've seen this with games will go like well
To be fair, that's virtually every fucking game. There's so few that out there are like sustaining
Counter-Strike, PUBG,
Yeah, exactly.
Minecraft.
Like those are few and far between the ones that have this sustained, very long burn over so long. Most games come out, make a big fucking deal, right? Even the most successful games, big fucking deal, big player base, and then it kind of falls off.
Well, but this game is the type of game that if they do continue with the updates and they keep evolving it, this is a perfect game to continue on to have that long life. But I would say it's so rare for a game to like Minecraft is a classic example. Fortnite is another classic example of like standing the test of time, even kind of like going through the peaks and valleys. Palworld, I mean, like what was it? BattleBit Remastered, blew up for like a few months. I even bought BattleBit Remastered, played it a little bit. I was waiting for controller support to be added, but I don't know what's going on with BattleBit. It doesn't matter because the two developers that made it already made their millions. I don't know how many people are behind Palworld, but it's going to require a constant updating, evolving, and listening to your audience. And that's not an easy thing to do, to kind of listen to your audience and make the right decisions. So
allegedly they have a small team. Now they have money so they can hire more people. But this seemed like it was like a startup level.
This thing's still early access technically, right?
Yeah.
Like, so certainly we haven't really even seen like what they think they can do with it yet.
Yeah, it's impressive, man. It's impressive. And
peaking right now, I'm looking peak today, 2 million users today. That's pretty nuts.
Jeez,
that's pretty nuts.
It's working, just like Brock said.
Right.
Like that is insane.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So you've got these massive peaks. If that falls off, and say you've got in the next 6 months down the road, say it falls off and you've got 200,000 people a day on average playing it. It's like, that's still a pretty fucking big user base,
that's like Rust, right? Rust has got like 100K playing at any given time, right? It's like a decent game. It's still out there. People still play it, right? That's fine. But my thought is, does it go below that, right? Does it really drop off? Going from 2 million people down to, 20,000 or 50,000 or something like that. That would be the steep drop off. I think if they don't expand, if they don't add to the game, if people don't think it's got replay value, the
thing that's different about Palworld versus anything like Among Us or Fall Guys or some of these other games, like those were really party centric games that really kind of got a big audience because you could get a group of friends together. Like this game does actually require like building and developing and there's an evolution to the characters and the story and everything like that. So
an evolution
from like a Minecraft standpoint, like it has that kind of element to it, and it obviously has the aesthetic that kind of connects you to Pokemon. So, and it's a survival game. It is poor is what it is. So from that perspective, it's got more going for it than a lot of these party games does. So.
And it's quasi-based. Did you guys see that comment from the developer about the Type A bodies?
I didn't even see that.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
That just kind of had me rolling. Hold on one second.
Palworld isn't even in its final form. Yeah, that's so again, it really comes down to, are the developers going to keep up with it? Are they going to keep up with it? I think Nintendo should just buy the damn IP from them right now. That's what should happen. Nintendo should just buy the damn IP from them and then roll with it. But they
they could.
They won't.
Or they could just buy them out. I don't think they would. It'd be kind of emitting admitting something they don't, I think, want to admit. But right here, you have a comment. So I don't know if you guys can read this, but the decision to make it Pokemon with guns was because they were worried the game would not be a global success unless they added guns, because Americans like to shoot things. And then beyond that, this is from the Japanese, right? The gender neutral Type A character creator was likewise because Americans sometimes want to make very ugly characters, right? Let me do that in my Asian accent. Americans sometimes want very ugly characters.
Thank you.
Holy shit, man. Holy shit. That's awesome.
I mean, that's kind
Hey, we like it. We like it. I like
it's
it.
just like random Japanese observation. It's like sometimes you're women, they look like a man. Like it's just like stuff they say and they just don't find it.
Right.
And they don't have the ESG filters, right? This is a
Right.
small company, so they don't have HR. There's no PR department, right, to keep that stuff from coming out. So it's like, oh wow, okay, well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
This is a country. If you're fucking overweight, you'll be like publicly shamed. Like people won't want to associate with you.
How could you let it get into this condition?
If you're over 25, you're considered Christmas cake. You know what Christmas cake is? No one wants to eat cake after it's stale.
Christmas cake.
Christmas cake. Yeah, it's a
I
concept.
have not heard that one before.
For girls. Yeah.
Can we
yeah,
use
Girls
that
are
one?
fun.
Can we use
Oh, you
that
can use it
one?
anytime
Can
you
we,
want.
Can
You
we
guys-
can we culturally appropriate that one? To
You can 199 stamp all over that, baby.
Pokemon go to the polls.
Pika, pika.